Hello, you're listening to Talkin Music with Joshua Kirk. On this show, I speak with musicians about albums they've made, their careers, shows they've played, and a range of other topics. My guest is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist from DC, known for his work in groups like the Beanstalk Library and more recently, Brian K. and the Parkway, and that is Brian Pagels. His band's latest album, Killing the Bear, was released on March 29th to critical acclaim. In this interview, I spoke with Brian about his musical influences, creating the new album, his relationship with collaborators, and the tour behind Killing. So without further ado, I hope you all enjoy my interview with Brian Pagels, my guest on Talkin' Music with Joshua Kirk. Hello, Brian.
Hey, how's it going, Joshua?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
So, Killing the Bear, your newest album with Brian K. and the Parkway, has been out for over a month. How does it feel to have this new batch of songs out for everyone to hear?
It's amazing after working on this project for several years. If you count the songwriting, portion of it, it goes back to 2020. So it was a long process to get here, and it feels amazing to finally have it out in the world and have people listen to it.
Oh yeah, I bet. Well, I definitely kind of figured that writing some of these songs might have begun during the pandemic, and pretty much we're kind of a work in progress for that long. I'm glad that it came out the way it did. This new project, Brian K. and the Parkway, is a duo composed of you and drummer, songwriter, and producer Stephen Russ. So I'm kind of wondering when this relationship began and how this project ultimately came together.
Steven and I have been friends for maybe a little more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
He actually originally auditioned on drums one time for the Beanstalk Library before we found Adam Neubauer
Yeah.
as our permanent drummer.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first time I met him, and then we developed a quick friendship around music pretty soon after that, just from going to local shows together and playing together and whatnot. And he had been talking to me about making what effectively we had both thought of as a solo album for myself
Eh,
for probably the last 7 years or so. And it just so happened we took a trip together in the summer of 2021. It was July 2021. We went up to New Jersey on sort of a Springsteen themed trip. There was a
Yeah.
museum exhibit that in Freehold, where I'm originally from, and that was dedicated to the boss and all things Bruce memorabilia, including I see the Nebraska album behind you. I actually saw the recording device that Bruce used to record Nebraska on at
Wow.
that exhibit, as well as other things. And it was on that trip that we decided, hey, why don't we take this batch of songs that I've been working on and actually start to work on them together as more of a band project. And so that's where it really started. That the musical relationship between us.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And it's so funny how we've now kind of made a pivot to uh kind of something that's going to be a big part of this conversation. I According to New Jersey Stage, you've cited the 70s rock sound of artists like Bruce Springsteen, Warren Zevon, and Tom Petty as the main influences on this record. What is it about that style that intrigues and inspires you?
I've always been attracted to those artists, not exclusively, I would say, but in particular, um, this the sort of heartland rock sound, as silly as like genre labels can be. I do think there is something to that music that sort of began in its heyday around the mid 70s, and depending on who you're asking, maybe lasted through the 80s. I think there's something to the mix of sort of a roots-oriented kind of rock and roll sound,
Yeah,
like the sound of like a live band playing, that really has more than just your typical classic rock influences.
yeah,
So it's kind of dipping into soul and R&B in certain instances, maybe bringing in some different instrumentation, relying heavily on keyboards and organ sounds as part of the overall sound. Like I think that's something
yeah,
that I've always been attracted to. Um, and so, when we thought about making this album, one thing I wanted to intentionally do was really harken back to some of the 70s era songwriting approaches and sounds, and not rely on what a lot of artists have been doing, I think, to great effect recently when they've been paying homage to Springsteen or similar heartland rock artists. They've been doing a lot that resembles the 80s output. Like there's a lot of stuff out there that sounds like Born in the USA or Tunnel of Love, but there's not a lot out there that I hear that sounds like The Wild, Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. And so I wanted to go a little bit more in that direction, not entirely, but as a source of inspiration for the album.
I have grown up with Springsteen myself, partly because of my dad. And fun little fact about my dad, he actually saw Bruce during the Born in the USA tour in 1984. Um,
Wow.
oh yeah, so there you go. That since we clearly have a soft spot for like the boss, yeah, I figured we could talk about I'm kind of wondering how like you got into his music and how he's influenced you throughout your career.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Born in the USA. I mean, that was the starting point for a lot of people. It was the starting point for me as well. I
Mhm.
was I was a little kid when that album came out,
Yeah,
and I had it on cassette. And so that was just, one of the few albums that I kind of wore out as a kid. So I was like immediately attracted to it at a visceral level, even before I could really understand the lyrics or sort of what was going on.
yeah,
And so that was my initial way in. It's kind of the story of three albums for me. So that was the first. The second would be when I got my license and started driving around town. I had this 79 Pontiac Firebird, which was my mom's car, and she had gifted it to me for when I got my license. And I needed it had a cassette player. And so I needed some cassettes to play. I had that Born in the USA cassette. So I went to actually the local grocery store, the Pathmark, which it's interesting. There's a Jesse Malin song called Brooklyn that includes a lyric about Pathmark in it. And it always makes me think about the Pathmark by my house where I grew up. Anyway, so I went to Pathmark and they had this like cassette section where you could buy like these cassettes for like $2 or $3. And so I picked up three cassettes, and one of those cassettes was Greetings from Asbury Park. And so I put that on. I'd never heard that album before, and I listened to it, and that was another cassette that I just wore out, like driving around Freehold and the Jersey Shore, when I was 17, 18 years old. So that was kind of the second album that broadened my perspective of what Springsteen was, because at that point it was pretty more or less limited to kind of greatest hits and Born in the USA output. And that really opened a big door for me in terms of what possibilities could be. And the third album was actually the live 75 to 85, which I think I probably got when I was around 18 or so. And that just blew me away. So
Similar to you, like I as a kid listened to Springsteen a lot, and actually in my case it was kind of more like kind of several albums throughout his career, and like before I even and kind of like you before I even understood like the lyrics and what they're about, and like I've actually been listening to him a lot just recently in preparation for this,
Hmm.
and yeah, like it's it's impressive how well uh a lot of his music has held up, and now I kind of resonate with some of the lyrics now. But besides the main influences, I do hear a bit of distinction among certain songs of genres like progressive rock, pop, and Americana. So is any of this intentional, or did the songs just come out that way?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think some of it's intentional just because Stephen and I were drawing upon a lot of our musical loves to create the palette of the album. And so, the different genres you mentioned are definitely, in our wheelhouse, and it's music that we love. So I was definitely a prog kid. Going back to my high school days, like I listened to. I'm actually wearing a Rush shirt right now.
Wow.
um, I listened to a lot of like Yes and Rush, and artists like that. I really loved like the sidelong epics. Really got into that sort of thing. Steven is like a big King Crimson guy. And he also, we both like the Mars Volta for sort of a more modern like take on sort of progressive approaches in music. So
Yeah.
that all is definitely there. But we both really like, Huey Lewis and the News, and artists that kind of have more of like a pop orientation to their sound. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're drawing on all these different kind of inspirations to make the album.
Oh yeah, and the Americana side of things, like yeah, I mean I kind of picked up a little bit of like a Jason Isbell kind of vibe uh in like certain songs. I mean like Is the Grass Really Greener? I think is a good example of that, and yeah, and there's certain songs that kind of have a little bit of all those elements, like Wind the Clock is I think a good example of that. And as for kind of more kind of the songwriting aspect of the album, your bio says that it addresses our ever-increasing inability as humans to uh, to deal with the source of our problems. So I'm kind of wondering if you could elaborate on those themes and maybe tell me what the album means to you.
Yeah, so light stuff, I try to keep it light. The first idea for the album that I had was the title track, Killing the Bear.
Yeah,
And at first it was just that phrase. For some reason that phrase just appeared to me. I remember where I was driving around town, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, killing the bear in the context of um like what it could mean as a metaphor. And I know, people may have different interpretations of it, and they are absolutely welcome to. I actually think that's one of the joys of songwriting and putting your
yeah,
music out in the world is
oh
have
yeah,
actually having people have different interpretations of the music. But
oh
anyway,
yeah,
like the metaphor that I was thinking about was how like the actual act of killing a bear that maybe like encroaching on your property or something is a very kind of surface level approach to dealing with problems that actually run much deeper.
yeah.
And so I had that idea, and then I wrote the song, and then I realized, oh, this would actually make a pretty good centerpiece for an album. And then I wrote the rest of the album kind of around that in a way, and I wanted every song to be effectively a story or a narrative of some kind that spoke to that broader theme, but looked at it from a different angle. So they all kind of fit together in that way, and that they're looking at, yeah, humans' inability to address problems not at the root, but at least closer to the root,
Yeah,
and instead, declaring victory after doing something at the surface level, while whatever's happening at the root just continues to fester.
there's definitely a lot of stuff on here that I really uh resonated with, and kind of like and kind of like people listening to Springsteen and being like, "Oh yeah, like that's me." Like I listen to some of this record and I'm like, so I'm like, "Oh yeah, I completely feel that." That throughout the record, like you and Stephen are kind of the glue holding everything together, but you are joined by a wide variety of collaborators. Oh, can you tell me a little bit about some of the people who contributed to the album?
For sure, yeah, and I'm so grateful that they gave their time and talents to it. It was a great process. So yeah, Stephen and I were sort of the core team doing the kind of songwriting and arranging, and we did all that work together
Yeah,
as a duo first,
yeah,
and then we brought in who became kind of the core band for the recording of the album. So
yeah,
Matt Williams on bass,
hey,
who Stephen had played with in the previous band, and then Audrey White on keyboards, who I had known um, from the local music scene around DC, because she had formerly been the keyboardist in the band called the NRIs,
yeah,
now effectively known as Nyan. They're
yeah,
another great band.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so the four of us really became the core band that worked on kind of fleshing out the material and ultimately recorded those parts for it. But there were certain songs that we felt we needed to go kind of beyond those four people, myself included, in order to add something special to various songs. So we brought in a horn section, as well as a great saxophonist named Sam Skelton for the song Little Fires, the Parkway Shuffle.
yeah,
We brought in a fantastic keyboardist named Moses Andrews, who plays organ on 3 tracks. He's
yeah.
actually a great songwriter and performer himself. We're playing with him on our tour.
Wow.
Um, and who else? Sean Thompson, who is also from the Columbia, South Carolina area, same as Moses, plays slide guitar on Killing the Bear. And then, of course, Kat Popper effectively is my duet partner on the song Straight Through, which was such a joy
Yeah.
to be able to do. I don't think I missed anyone, but
Oh yeah.
that was
Well, one person I'm thinking of is Aaron Ryan, who I know was in Beanstalk Library. But yeah,
of course.
yes. But I know like she plays this like great like kind of violin solo like on Is the Grass Really Greener, and and sang on a handful of songs. And Kat Popper, I'm kind of wondering how the contact with her came about, and what do you think she really like brought to that particular song Straight Through?
I've always really liked Kat's voice. I thought it was really distinctive, and has its own vibe. And
Oh yeah.
I've thought that for like 20 years, ever since I heard her sing Harmony on Cold Roses, the
Oh yeah,
album,
yeah,
not the
the
song.
Ryan Adams album, which
Uh,
yeah, I'm very well known for that review actually.
so that was my first exposure to her. Well, that I was aware of, to her singing. I didn't even realize she was a bassist at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I came to learn that, and of course she's a pretty sought after bassist in the industry. But I just thought, yeah, like it'd be cool to if she would be willing to sing a song on the album, and so Straight Through seemed like it was the appropriate track. And I hadn't had any contact with her. I literally filled out a form on her website,
Oh
and
yeah.
she,
Wow.
and she got back to me like within an hour, and she was so nice. She said she loved the song, and she was like, let's do it. So that's how it started. And yeah, it's pretty cool now. We know each other a bit better, and she came and sang and performed at our release show,
Oh yeah.
which is great, and we hope to see her again sometime soon.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So on the note of playing live, the band is currently on tour for the album, with shows around the East Coast, the Carolinas, and at least one show in Boston. How's the tour going?
I mean, you could say we officially kicked off the tour with the release show, which was at Jam in Java.
Yeah.
But as we speak today, we are getting ready to hit the road. So we actually head down for our first out of town show tomorrow, which is going to be in Charleston as we record this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna do 4 shows in the Carolinas. We'll come back up to roughly speaking the DC metro area and play Richmond and Silver Spring.
Oh,
And then we head up to the Northeast for a 4 to 8 run through Philly, Asbury Park, um, Boston, and Brooklyn. So we're really excited about it. It's like it's 10 dates over 11 days, and we're excited to take the album on the road and see what how people in different cities respond to it.
yeah, yeah, that's really great to hear. So you and I have known each other since summer of 2013, and you were a big fan of my reviews as I was kind of starting to get uh, more attention for that. What have you taken away from this particular connection?
Obviously, like what I think is so great about you, and what I've taken away from you is exposure to new music and artists that I wouldn't have necessarily that wouldn't have necessarily like been on my radar.
Yeah,
I also appreciate for certain artists, I don't know if unabashed fandom is the right word, but like
mm,
the way you can like straddle the line between especially with what you've been doing recently, like really sort of honest critiques
yes,
of music, and while also sort of still celebrating artists
yeah,
that whose material over the years you've really enjoyed.
oh yeah,
And just and I think like the care you take in really like it's so evident that you really take the time to listen to the album and think about it and provide sort of really detailed feedback on it. It's just something that we're missing these days
yeah,
to a large degree. I'll say, we had we've gotten some good reviews of Killing the Bear,
yeah,
but a couple of them were like clearly written by like a bot. When you read the review, there's definitely humanity missing from it. And I think like the thing that you bring to the work that you do is real humanity and your unique perspective to talking about the music. So I really appreciate that, and I really loved seeing you at the Brian Dunn show
yeah.
when we reconnected a couple of months ago, and
I-
yeah,
oh yeah, and Brian Dunn is actually the first person I interviewed on this particular podcast. So like, yeah, we become friends lately. Yeah, he's such he's such a cool dude. I'm kind of wondering if you've got anything else you're working on right now besides the tour and yeah, yeah, what you're doing with Beanstalk Library.
the Beanstalk Library is sort of actively working on new material. We've just kind of live debuted at some of our most recent shows a couple of the new songs, and we have a new song in the bank, as it were, and we'll be working on a video for that shortly.
Yeah.
So we have that coming up in Brian K. and the Parkway land. Stephen and I have most of the next album written,
Oh,
and so we're currently planning to when we have a little bit of downtime from touring over the summer to really kind of flesh out and arrange those tunes more
yeah.
in large part with the touring band that we have intact right now. Since it's a different group of people than the folks who effectively made the album, and we're hoping to basically work on those arrangements together, and then be able to, maybe as early as early next year, record that album and maybe get it out there, sometime before the next year's out. So that's what we're thinking about right now. We also have in October we have a fall tour coming up where we'll be playing. We'll be hitting some cities we aren't playing on this initial East Coast run. So we're gonna play like Nashville, Chicago, probably Columbus, Ohio, Pittsburgh. So kind of hitting more of the Midwest Rust Belt towns. And yeah, we're working on some other opportunities to play some shows. Some festival opportunities have come up. So just keeping busy and trying now that the album's finally out there, it's all about kind of getting into the ears of as many people and as many markets as we can.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm really happy for you that you've you've already been working on the next thing, and that you have shows and all those cities. So would you mind letting our listeners know where we can find you on social media?
Sure. We're most active on Instagram at Brian K in the Parkway.
Yeah.
That's where you can find us there. If Stephen largely manages that channel, so if you like it, you can let him know, and if you
Yeah.
don't like it, you can let him know. Um, and and yeah, I mean, so we're kind of dabbling with TikTok a little bit, trying to see if we can, of late, trying to see if we can get some traction there as well. We're also on Facebook because that's still a place that makes a lot of sense in terms of being able to promote events, like promote our actual shows and invite people to them. So that's kind of largely what we're using Facebook for, as well as kind of resharing things that we post on Instagram. And then we have our main website, briankandtheparkway.com. That's sort of our hub. And we have our vinyl and t-shirts available for sale at our Bandcamp site, which you can access as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, well, that's cool. I'd have to look into that. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on a Talking Music to talk about things you've been working on, and the different projects you've been in, and I am also happy to have someone to nerd out about Springsteen with too. So yeah, thanks for that. Yep.
Anytime.
If you want to learn more about Brian K. and the Parkway and check out their music, just check out the link to their website below in the description. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment. If you have any suggestions for how I could make future improvements for the show, I'd be glad to hear them. You can also find me at my Facebook and Instagram links down below. Talkin' Music is edited by Louisa Phillips. Thank you to Brian Pagels for participating, and to you for listening. Have a good day, everyone.